I think that's very sad. I think that the general American public has a much better opinion of themselves, and they have to sit and read magazine articles that degrade other people so that they can feel superior. I think that's what they consider.
To millions, he was America's dad, wise, kind, and the moral heart of Walnut Grove. Michael Landon built a TV empire on family values and unbreakable bonds. He was Charles Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, the loving father who could solve any problem with a thoughtful lesson. Before that, he was Little Joe, the fiery youngest son on Bonanza. His on-screen persona was so powerful, so deeply woven into the public consciousness, that it felt real. He was the dad everyone wished they had, a pillar of integrity. But what if that was all an act? Behind the cameras, the man the public adored was a demanding perfectionist who ruled his sets with an iron fist. He held grudges that could last a lifetime, and several of his co-stars landed on the wrong side of his temper. These weren't just petty disagreements, they were bitter feuds, quiet betrayals, and moments so tense they left the crew speechless. One co-star thought he was arrogant from the second they met, another was physically shoved in a fit of anger, and one actor's final act of protest was to skip Landon's funeral entirely. Today, we're revealing the 6 actors Michael Landon reportedly clashed with, and the on-set conflicts that shattered his wholesome image forever. Get ready, because you may never see Pa Ingalls the same way again. And if you're into true behind-the-scenes Hollywood drama, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You're about to get the unfiltered truth. Before we jump into the list, you have to understand the man at the center of these storms. Michael Landon wasn't just an actor, he was a powerhouse. Born Eugene Orowitz, he had a turbulent childhood that forged in him a relentless drive and a deep-seated need for control. His ambition was off the charts. After his breakout role on Bonanza, Landon didn't just want to be in front of the camera, he wanted to run the whole show. On Little House on the Prairie, he got his wish. He wasn't just the star. He was the executive producer, a frequent writer, and the most common director for the series. This gave him total authority. The world of Walnut Grove was his world, and everyone in it played by his rules. He was a complete paradox. Allison Arngrim, who played Nellie Olson, called him one of the biggest walking bundles of contradictions I have ever met. He could be screaming at a crew member one moment, then flash a perfect smile for a visiting family the next, only to resume his tirade the second they left. He was obsessed with perfection, and that obsession often came at a high price for the people around him. His need for loyalty was absolute, and any perceived betrayal was a wound that never quite healed. This mix of creative genius, raw ambition, and deep-seated insecurity set the stage for some of the biggest feuds in TV history. Kicking off our list isn't an actor, but the man who gave Michael Landon his most iconic role, Ed Friendly, the co-creator and executive producer of Little House on the Prairie. Their partnership should have been a home run, but it cracked wide open before the first season even finished, turning into a bitter fight for the show's soul. Friendly was the one who bought the rights to Laura Ingalls Wilder's beloved books. He envisioned a gritty, realistic take on pioneer life. He wanted the Ingalls family to look poor, suggesting the kids go barefoot and dirty to reflect the era's harshness. In Friendly's version, the family would live in a sod house, just like in the books, to hammer home their struggle. Michael Landon, whom Friendly had cast as Charles Ingalls, had a wildly different idea. Landon wanted to make a show that was aspirational and heartwarming, packed with moral lessons, even if it meant bending the truth. He reportedly balked at the thought of his TV kids being shoeless. The depressing sod house was also a non-starter. For Landon, who wanted a picturesque, visually appealing prairie, the clash was immediate. It was a fundamental disagreement, historical document of struggle versus uplifting family drama. Melissa Sue Anderson, who played Mary Ingalls, recalled the ever-growing rift between them. The tension got so bad that Landon, knowing he was the star, gave NBC an ultimatum. It was Friendly or him. The network, realizing Landon was the face and creative engine of the show, sided with its star. Ed Friendly was removed from the day-to-day production, though he kept his executive producer credit, and as Landon would later point out with some bitterness, made around $40 million from a show he nearly derailed. Landon's victory cemented his absolute control over Little House and sent a clear message. On his set, there was only one vision that mattered, his. To millions, Catherine McGregor was Harriet Olsen, the gossipy, meddling, and downright hilarious villain of Walnut Grove. Her on-screen fights with the Ingalls family were a highlight of the show, but behind the scenes, the tension between McGregor and Michael Landon was just as real, a quiet, simmering Cold War that lasted for nearly a decade. According to Allison Arngrim, who played her daughter Nellie, McGregor disliked Landon from day one. During her audition, Landon apparently strode into the room with an air of untouchable confidence. Arngrim wrote that McGregor was instantly put off, later howling with laughter as she compared him to a baby bantam rooster, strutting around like he owned the place. That first impression stuck. McGregor was a classically trained New York stage actress who cared deeply about the craft. The glitzy, ego-driven Hollywood star system, which Landon seemed to master with his tight jeans and swagger, likely rubbed her the wrong way. While many in the cast saw Landon as a charming leader, McGregor kept her distance. She was never part of his inner circle and didn't hide her disapproval, though she rarely confronted him directly. For 9 seasons, they kept things professional but frosty. The depth of her feelings became clear when it was time for the show's finale movie, Little House, The Last Farewell. In the film's explosive climax, the town of Walnut Grove is literally blown up. Every major cast member returned to say goodbye, except one. Catherine McGregor refused to appear. Officially, her agent stated she was on a long-planned religious pilgrimage to India. But for many on the cast and crew, her absence spoke volumes. While others wept watching their sets turn to rubble, Harriet Olsen was nowhere to be seen. It felt like the ultimate quiet act of defiance, a final silent word in a feud that had simmered for years. The dynamic between Michael Landon and Melissa Sue Anderson, who played the thoughtful Mary Ingalls, wasn't so much a feud as it was a quiet, professional divergence. Anderson was known on set for being serious, reserved, and all business, while Melissa Gilbert, Laura Ingalls, saw Landon as a second father. Anderson always kept a professional distance. Anderson was fiercely dedicated to her acting, and her main focus was the quality of her character's storylines. She was given some of the most dramatic material on the show, especially when Mary went blind, a storyline Landon had to convince her would be a powerful showcase for her talent. He was right. But as the years went on, Anderson grew frustrated with the show's direction. She felt the scripts were getting repetitive and that Mary's plot lines were becoming bland and overly sentimental. In her memoir, The Way I See It, she diplomatically explained her dissatisfaction, feeling the show was losing the compelling dramatic edge of its early seasons. This creative friction put her at odds with Landon, who had the final say on every script. Her desire for more complex material was an implicit challenge to his storytelling. For a boss like Landon, who demanded unwavering loyalty, Anderson's quiet professionalism and creative concerns may have felt like a lack of commitment. Her eventual departure tells the story. Unlike others who stayed until the end, Anderson chose to leave Little House after season 7, returning only for a guest spot. Her decision to walk away from a top-rated series signaled that she was no longer creatively fulfilled. While their relationship never turned into an explosive fight, it was a slow parting of ways between a perfectionist boss and a serious young actress who chose her own artistic path. In Landon's world, that was a move he likely took personally. Long before The Prairie, Michael Landon got his first real taste of on-set conflict on Bonanza. It came from his on-screen older brother, Pernell Roberts, who played the sophisticated Adam Cartwright. Their feud was a classic clash, the loyal company man versus the rebellious artist. Pernell Roberts was a serious stage actor who saw acting as a high art. He'd won a Drama Desk Award for Shakespeare before he ever set foot on the Ponderosa and expected Bonanza to have complex, sophisticated scripts. He was sorely disappointed. Roberts found the writing simplistic and thought it was ridiculous that three grown men had to constantly ask their pa for permission. He famously complained, "Isn't it a bit silly for three adult males to have to ask fathers permission for everything they do?" He wasn't quiet about his complaints either. He openly trashed the show in interviews, calling the writing junk. This drove the young and ambitious Michael Landon nuts. Landon was grateful for the fame Bonanza brought and was committed to the show's success. He saw Roberts' behavior as arrogant and ungrateful. To Landon, Roberts was disrespecting the work that made them all famous and threatening the happy family image they were selling to America. The feud hit its breaking point when Roberts quit the show in 1965, at the absolute peak of its popularity. He walked away from a massive salary and a hit series because he couldn't stand the material. For Landon, who valued loyalty above all else, this was the ultimate betrayal. He never forgave him. Years later, Landon went on a talk show and publicly mocked Roberts for his career choices, turning their broken relationship into a punchline. The conflict with Roberts was a lesson for Landon. It solidified his belief that loyalty was everything and taught him that he needed to be in control, to make sure no one could ever disrupt his set or question his vision again. When Dean Butler joined Little House in its 6th season as Almanzo Wilder, he was a young actor stepping onto a set that ran like a well-oiled machine. And that machine was run by Michael Landon. Butler quickly learned just how intimidating Landon could be during the filming of one particularly tense scene. The scene took place in a barn and required precise timing and high emotion. Landon, acting as both director and co-star, was orchestrating every move. After several takes, he grew visibly frustrated that the scene wasn't clicking. His notoriously thin patience finally snapped. In a sudden burst of anger, Landon physically shoved Dean Butler, moving him across the barn floor. The crew was stunned into silence. It wasn't a playful nudge. It was an aggressive, physical act of frustration from a director who had lost his temper. For a young actor like Butler, being physically pushed by the star and producer of the show was shocking and humiliating. It was a raw display of power, a clear message that on Landon's set, failing to meet his expectations could have consequences. Alison Arngrim later described the incident as a perfect example of Landon's dominance. It wasn't just about getting the scene right. It was about asserting his authority in the most visceral way. The shove was a stark reminder that Michael Landon was not Pa Ingalls. The warm, patient father from the screen could disappear in an instant, replaced by a volatile perfectionist who demanded total compliance. While Butler continued his role and became a beloved part of the Little House family, the incident was a lesson in how charisma and intimidation could go hand in hand on Landon's set. Of all Michael Landon's conflicts, none was more personal or painful than his feud with Karen Grazel, the actress who played his wife, Caroline Ma Ingalls. On screen, they were the perfect TV couple. But in her 2021 memoir, Bright Lights, Prairie Dust, Grazel revealed a deeply troubled relationship marked by bitter contract disputes, crude jokes, and emotional cruelty. The trouble started before season 2. Little House was a massive hit, and as the female lead, Grazel felt it was only fair to ask for a raise to match the show's success. Landon, who controlled the budget, flatly refused. He reportedly told her she wasn't as popular as the child actors and shouldn't expect more money. Grazel felt insulted and undervalued. When she held her ground, Landon allegedly began to retaliate. According to Grazel, He started cutting her scenes and minimizing her role. The warm partnership they had on screen devolved into a frosty, tense, working relationship. But it went beyond money. Grassel painted a disturbing picture of a toxic set environment fueled by Landon. She claimed he would make crude, offensive jokes in front of the crew, sometimes about her appearance. She wrote that during intimate scenes he would use foul language to make her uncomfortable, a stark contrast to the wholesome image the show was built on. Grassel felt bullied and isolated, forced to put on a brave face while feeling like she wanted to disappear. The feud dragged on for years. She eventually got her raise, but the emotional damage was done. However, the story has a surprising and poignant ending. In 1991, as Landon was dying from pancreatic cancer, he called her. Grassel recalled that the man on the phone wasn't the tyrant she knew, but a kind and warm person. They made peace in that final conversation, a moment of grace after years of animosity. Grassel has said she is very grateful they were able to reconnect. Their feud, the most intense of Landon's career, ended not with a fight, but with a quiet moment of forgiveness, adding one last complex layer to the legacy of a deeply flawed man. So what does this all mean for Michael Landon's legacy? It's a study in contrasts. He was, without a doubt, a television pioneer, a brilliant force of nature who created some of the most beloved shows in history. He knew how to tell stories that tapped into universal themes of family, love, and morality. And yet, the creator of these perfect worlds was far from perfect himself. He was a man driven by a fierce need for control, a perfectionist whose ambition could easily turn into tyranny. He demanded absolute loyalty and could be punishing to those who challenged him, whether it was over a script, a paycheck, or a perceived betrayal. The stories from Karen Grassel, Pernell Roberts, and others paint a picture of a man who could inspire both fierce devotion and deep resentment. In the end, maybe we don't have to reconcile the two Michael Landons. Human beings are complicated, and great artists are often the most contradictory of all. The same drive that made him a visionary also made him a difficult boss. The same insecurities that fueled his need for control also pushed him to create television that made millions feel secure. The beloved icon and the flawed man were two sides of the same coin, inseparable parts of a fascinating legacy. His work will forever stand as a testament to the values he put on screen, while these stories remind us that reality is always far more complicated than the script. What's your take? Were these feuds just the result of a creative genius under pressure, or a man who let power go to his head? Let us know in the comments which actor's story surprised you the most. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden stories of classic TV. Thanks for watching.